last closing remarks. Just interestingly, we're here today talking about the problems in rural Ireland and issues to do with depopulation and immigration, all that. I was actually at a conference recently with other European journalists, and it's an issue in every European country. In fact, a Latvian journalist was telling me about, going back over the years, how 15, 16-year-olds were left in charge of the household while their parents emigrated, and that was out of the country. And she had real facts to prove that to me. Her own mother had left her when she was young to go and work in England, and had come back. In the Netherlands, a journalist told me how the government, or the local government there, threatened to close down a local village. Literally close it down and run the people out of it because they reckon it wasn't viable to service anymore. I don't think we've reached that point here in Ireland. But all the journalists that I spoke to, right across from the Scandinavian countries down to Iberia, all talked about how rural depopulation is a big problem. So it's not just an Irish phenomenon. But one person that was here at the coffee break made a very good point. God, if you were in here and you're a foreigner listening to all this, you'd say, Jesus, rural Ireland must be an awful place altogether. But in fact, we all know what a fantastic and brilliant place rural Ireland is. And as I travel around the country, interviewing farmers, which I love doing, especially this time of the year, and they talk about the problems and the concerns and the issues, whether it's to do with CAP or the weather or whatever it is, I ask them, well, would you prefer to live in a city, working for somebody else, with a big mortgage, driving to work, having to clock in, clock out? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Living in rural Ireland with all the problems is, and especially at a farm, they would take it over some of the jobs we'd say that we're talking about that people are moving to in cities and towns. So I think before we go to the floor, it's fair to say that rural Ireland, as we all love it, and people travel thousands of miles to come to our country to visit it. They could choose to go anywhere, but they come to Ireland because of what rural Ireland, it's not necessarily what the cities have to offer, what rural Ireland has to offer. So it's a fantastic and a beautiful canvas, I suppose, upon which all the people here and all the stakeholders can paint their colourful ideas onto, and that surely will continue under Cedra. Okay, I know with the good weather, the farmers among you have lots of hay you need to go home and turn before the weather turns bad. So again, just if there's any points based on what you heard, just raise your hand. Where we go here? Just so you know, we could go wherever, Laura, I think there's somebody up here. Was there somebody there? Somebody raised a hand up there.
Yeah, Vincent Roach, I'm a member of the Western Development Commission. I think it's clear from all the presentations today that what we must have is a multifaceted approach to creating jobs in rural areas, and I mean rural areas in the broadest sense as defined by Pat this morning. Clearly we have to continue to develop agriculture in the whole agri-food area. We have to develop rural tourism, obviously. We have to try and develop our renewable energy potential. But I think the one area that was possibly neglected a bit today or understated was the whole area of foreign direct investment. Now, I think it was touched on perhaps in Deirdre Frost's presentation, where she outlined very clearly the importance of employment in the medium and larger towns for people living in rural areas. And it was clear from our presentation we've literally thousands of people who commute to work in those towns. But those people, they're living in rural Ireland. Their children are going to local schools, they're spending their money locally. So, I'm thinking in terms of towns like my own town, Ballinar, where we've two major overseas industries like Hollister and Coca-Cola, Castlebarry and Baxter, and in the likes of Westport, you have Allergan, you have Abbots and Sligo. These are huge employers, and we really have to continue to have employers like that. And after what we do with our indigenous industries, or small and medium enterprises, which are also important, and my own agency, the WDC, provides a lot of incentives for those. But the major overseas firms are crucial and will continue to be crucial in terms of employment for rural Ireland. And I think it's very important that the forthcoming Cedra report highlights that and highlights the need for continued government incentives, whether it's tax incentives or providing infrastructure, broadband, road access and so on, so those firms stay here, expand, and that we get more of them in here. Because bad knowledge rural Ireland is at the moment, we've not that works without them. Thank you.
That's an interesting point. Anybody else? At the back there, yeah? Just beside you, yeah?
Paddy Wyman, Farm Rights Group. There's all talk about bottom up, but I think it's top down. Like the last speaker there mentioned about get to the Minister Environment and Agriculture and the Commissioner maybe. The Commissioner for Agriculture is very much in favour of being fair. But the Minister for Agriculture isn't too fair.
Paddy,
Jerry Boyle.
to be fair, I don't think this is the forum to debate the upcoming CAP reform. I know your point and you made it earlier on this morning, but I don't think Pat Spillane is going to intervene at this stage and convince the Minister and the Commissioners to the best way of distributing the CAP payments. I'm just to be fair, but continue to point, but try to focus
If you like, Professor Jerry Boyle is in favour of the old historical system and keeping the big boys up and forgetting about the little boys. And
but you made that point this morning, Paddy. Has anything else to add since on what you've heard since? No, okay. Sorry, Paddy, but I know that you made that point very clear earlier on, and we'll see that played out over the next few weeks. Go ahead.
No, I'm Joseph O'Connor. I'm up with South County Development Partnership. I'm up for the last 13 years on the Agricultural and Small Orders Programme and the Rural Social Scheme and the 2 scheme at the moment. It's just amazing rural development conference here today. The social protection weren't part of it. I can't understand it. They're probably the second, maybe the biggest funders of the local development companies at this point. They provide funding to local development companies that employ the people that need jobs, the people that are unemployed, or people on the farms that are on very low incomes. And it's amazing. We had one minister here that was wanting to take everything away from the local development companies, but the other side of the house didn't seem to be either refused to come or weren't invited. It just amazed me how that could happen. I've been coming to conferences like this and meeting all the various people that have worked for years and years in rural development, and they had no real place here to speak at the front table. People that represent the local development companies. I can't understand it. I think Rhode Island is a fantastic place to live in, and especially over the last week when we had fine weather, it was full of people. And I think the really positive stories that have happened over the last 5 or 6 years would be the rural social scheme, the walk schemes, the development of the greenways, the development of the wood chip industry in rural Ireland. If more government departments put wood chip boilers into their hospitals and schools, there'd be a lot of work in forestries, a lot of work in tinning, a lot of work in transporting of wood chip to these facilities. I think those kind of projects should have been showcased here, and I hope that they will be in the final report that Cedra will present to the Minister. Rural proofing has to happen in every department. It's not happening. When this government came to power, they closed down the rural development department that was there, and it was left nowhere as far as I can see, and that needs to change, and I hope Cedra will have that strongly in their report that there needs to be one department responsible for rural issues in rural areas, and then all the departments have to go to that department when they come up with policies so that rural areas aren't forgotten. And I think education has a big part to play as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Okay, we want to hear you.
Seamus Brown aboard this UR, and I'm taking off my semi-state cap and referring to the coastal communities, and as an ex-fisherman, and they seem to be neglected in a lot of ways. Even under Cedra, there wasn't any mention of the coastal community here today. I haven't read any reports. The coastal communities are isolated communities, but they can contribute to rural development, you know. The coastal communities are part of rural Ireland, and they have a role to play in marine tourism, but especially in their own communities, in fishing and agriculture, sustainable fishing and agriculture. And they can sustain their communities by those artisan, traditional industries. But they need assistance from the organisation I work for and other organisations. But they still are part of the coastal communities. And as
what's the unemployment rate there, just to give some time, you know, in coastal communities involved in the fishing and industry in Ireland, what does it account for in terms of employment?
I just wouldn't be able to tell you that, because there's export value up to nearly €1 billion, right, or €700 million, I should say.
Yeah.
And as Ronnie Drew had in the song, you know, thank God we're surrounded by water, and we're surrounded by clean waters.
And has the recent common fisheries policy reform, has that helped or, you know, sustain, I suppose, a lot of those communities?
Well, the common fisheries policy, you know, will have its benefits when you come down the road, but you still have to sustain the communities that are there now. And they're still, you know, they're in rural Ireland, and they play a part in the rural landscape.
Sure, very good. Okay, thanks for that. Anybody else? Over here, this lady here, the white. And then let's take a couple more.
Martina Maloney from Galway County Council. I suppose I'd like to thank the organisers for what has been a very stimulating conference today. And there are two things I want to touch on. One has just been dealt with, so I won't go into any huge detail on it. It is the opportunity that is the marine sector, and I suppose it's one of the areas that has been, particularly the marine tourism sector, is one where nobody owned it for quite a significant number of years, and it is an area that without doubt has a lot of employment potential, and is one I think that needs to be reflected in any document going forward in relation to rural development. The other piece I want to touch on is the area of rural towns and villages, and you touched on it yourself earlier on today, and their sustainability. And I suppose the last speaker spoke about where other countries are, like Finland and Germany, in this space at the moment, in relation to the decline in rural towns and villages. And I suppose, while I come from County Galway, our population in the last intercensal period increased by 10%. The city increased by 5%. So there are a lot more people living in rural communities. There are a lot more people earning and having spending power in those rural communities, but yet the sustainability of the rural towns and villages seems to be in decline. It's something that I'm very concerned about, that we can't find a solution whereby those people are utilising the services in their local towns and villages and are being drawn instead into the metropolises, I suppose, in the country. And I'm just wondering, are there solutions being identified in other countries in that space that we could maybe learn from, whether it's in Germany or Finland? Because if you don't have that sustainable town or village, it weakens the rural hinterland as well, and it reduces the capacity of people to stay living in those rural communities into the future.
Yeah, I think it's very good, Martina, just to emphasise the point that I made, and I think people share it here, that while on the one hand it's wonderful to be able to find ways of encouraging startups, it shouldn't be at the expense of struggling businesses and small businesses. Particularly, we saw 90% of people employed in rural Ireland are in businesses with 10 people or smaller, and they're really struggling. So maybe that's something, Pat, that apart from trying to encourage entrepreneurship, it's holding on to what we have, and be they the small farmers that Paddy talks about, or the small shop owners. Anyway, Sean, yeah?
Yeah, just Damien, just to touch on Dr. Rano there, and he did say grants, you know, as kind of revolving funds, and I would happily, you know, endorse that, because say when I'm chairman of the leader group in from my Mallow area, I'm a voluntary chairman, and there's an awful lot of voluntary input that has gone totally unrecognised. And Pat, I just said it to him at the break there, we were actually invited, our names were given from the meeting in our area, but unfortunately we were excluded, we were left in. But I would like that when the interim report comes out on the Cedra, right, that it's circulated and that we can input fairly strongly into all the stuff we have today, because there was brilliant stuff put up there. But the revolving fund, I would say, because we've had to do it, say where a community comes up with a project, say of 250,000, and it has to be bankrolled right to the finish, and then you come back and you claim back your 75%. So we had to go to Tancreda for that, because the banks or any of those wouldn't listen to communities. They wouldn't deal with us, you know. So that's one of the things. The other one that I'd say, just that with the leader, from my experience, and that's 40 years in community development, is that it has provided solutions to the gaps that have been left by this centralisation. And I would say that the bottom up, we have talked an awful lot about bottom up, but really to the officials in government departments, we have to explain it more, and we have to put our wares more in the shop window as leader groups, because we tend to take off the wellies of the coat and do the work, and we don't tend to, you know, get into the press. The I was talking as well. There is a problem as well with the press at the minute in getting the kind of good news stories that we have out in communities. I wouldn't live any place else, only while I'm living in Kilrup. I've worked in it for the past 50 years in developing it. I'm enjoying the benefits of the quality of life there. You know, and that need, I was in Bavaria last week, in Grano at a wedding, and when I looked at, you know, the people out there and the way they work for their own communities, you know, we've been doing that here for years, but I just said to Damien that, you know, to get the stories that of the successes.
Oh, would you read about them? That's what the press will say back to you, the media.
Well, they'll
You
come
know,
with
it's about
I was on front line trying to defend, you know, the closure of rural gas stations. We didn't see Pat Kenny until 3 minutes before the second thing started, right? He came in with an agenda, and unless...
I'd have to defend Pat there, absolutely.
Fine, he's a professional, you know,
No, I wouldn't have to defend him.
unless you had your name to the producer earlier on, and he knew what you were going to say, you weren't going to be asked the question, you know. But look, that's the way we cope that. You know, there's...
Don't blame the messenger.
No, but I'm saying that there's a difficulty in getting good news stories.
Of course there is, because the media, and I'm not going to get into a row here about it, but I mean, you know, they do their research as well, very scientifically, on radio programs or newspapers. And what sells is not the great news stories about the creation of jobs. That's what people, believe it or not, it's not, and I'm talking about people, we're the people that read newspapers and listen to the radio. I mean, go and look at all the facts and statistics. If you fill the radio programs with wonderful, fantastic, great, brilliant, lovely, rosy stories all the time, your listenership will go down.
Yes.
That's the part, that's maybe just a reflection on society.
In my book, this top-down has failed. Bottom-up has succeeded. We just need to spell out bottom-up better.
Okay, thanks, Sean. All right, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, thank you very much for your attention. And at this point, and I think we've done very well from something that began at 9 this morning to run until 5, that we're only a couple of minutes over despite all the speakers that we've had in contribution. So I'll hand you over for the closing statement now to Pat Spillane. Thank you very much.
Just briefly, a few thank yous. First of all, I know Damien is one, so I want to thank most sincerely Damien for acting as moderator of the debate today. Damien, thank you very much. Can I thank National University of Maynooth, Professor Jim Walsh, and in particular Professor Philip Nolan, the President, for the use of that facilities and for the very nice great welcome they gave us. And to thank all the speakers, Professor Janet Dwyer, Dr. David Meredith, Dr. Kevin Enu, Professor Sally Shortall, Minister Hogan for attending, Professor Colin O'Donoghue, Deirdre Frost, Dr. Dirk Arnold, for wonderful contributions today and much appreciated. Can I thank the people who chaired before debates, Geraldine Talon, Ian Brannigan, Johnny Boyd and Jim Walsh. It was also much appreciated. Can I thank in particular the people who were responsible for organising this and for all the work. Like I said, Cedra is very much a very small-time operation, and basically the only people really working on this are the interns on the Government Jobs Bridge Programme. The Government Jobs Bridge Programme is something that you hear some negative comments about. Can I just say that we have interns on this who are absolutely brilliant. And I hate to build them up so much because somebody will go and take them away before all great work is finished. But the quality of the interns on the Jobs Bridge Programme, they're doing over and beyond the college duty. They were here at 7 o'clock this morning organising this. They didn't have to be here at 7 o'clock this morning. So can I thank Sean and Laura and Ryan and Will and all the gang involved. They're just brilliant, and it's a brilliant initiative. They're brilliant people, and you know, they deserve to be in full-time employment, and we're just damn lucky that we have them at present. Look, I was sort of new to this scene, and I came in with innocent romantic notions that I was going to really change rural Ireland. And I learned that it's not as easy as there's no quick fix solution. And I can share your frustrations, and I can share even cynicism, and I can share your criticism. And I know you've been here before. You've been here many years before. You've seen loads of bodies in action. You've seen loads of ministers making presentations. You've probably seen 1 million of these PowerPoint presentations. I haven't seen many of them. I won't see many more of them, I can tell you this. But the one thing is for sure, you know, I went into this because I think, like I said earlier on today, we're coming very close to the crossroads of actually doing something. Rural Ireland isn't about leprechauns and maidens dancing at crossroads. But rural Ireland, as Jim Walsh pointed out in a paper he presented a couple of weeks ago, rural Ireland is not synonymous with decline. Rural Ireland is not synonymous with a culture of subsidies and dependency. Rural Ireland is not synonymous with stereotypes of backwardness and parochialism. Rural Ireland is full of proud, passionate, resilient people. Great people with great ideas, but they need support and they need encouragement. There are people who want to sustain in rural Ireland a vibrant community, a sustainable community in rural Ireland, where there is somewhere to live, but more especially there's somewhere to work. The theme of today's conference was opportunities for economic development. They are there, but we must seize them. Henry Ford said, obstacles are those frightening things you see when you take your eyes off the goal. Our goal is to try to come up with a plan for job creation in rural Ireland. And I have used this example down through in all the meetings I've been in, and I come from a sporting background. And as I explained to people earlier on today, maybe to the innocence of being involved in a sporting background, when I played with a team and everyone had the same colour jersey, I knew they were all playing with me. It was a start. When I landed into this, I suddenly realised that even around the one table, half the people weren't playing in the team with me at all. They were playing with their own ball. And I complained actually to the minister in question, and I said, why aren't these people, I thought they'd be all gung-ho and full of gusto, full of vibrancy like me and trying to change the world. And I said, they're saying nothing, they're contributing nothing. Yeah, he says, they're full backs. They have to mind their own area. Maybe it's a problem in this country. But I use as a template for success a county from a sporting background, the county I criticised originally, and that's Donegal. 3 years ago, the Donegal football team were the 19th best team in Ireland. 19. 2 years later, with the same bunch of players, they won the All-Ireland. And the template they use for success is the template we can use for Cedra being successful. The key was, first of all, a man coming in, a person coming in that provided leadership, Jimmy McGuinness. Not alone did he provide leadership, but more importantly, he provided a vision and a plan. That vision and plan was to win it all out within 3, they won it within 2. But their mantra, at every training session in the dressing room, at every occasion in the dressing room before all the matches, there was 4 words, was constantly driven in and instilled into their players. They had the vision, they had the plan, and they had the leadership. And once you had that in place, 4 key elements needed for the players to come on board. And those 4 key elements were commit, focus, believe, and you'll achieve. And I genuinely believe if we can commit and we can focus, then I think we can believe, and I genuinely think we can achieve. But we'll only achieve job creation for rural Ireland by working together. That is the key. By working together, not working with agendas, not with self-interest groups, all working together. Because at the end of the day, we might have differences, but we're passionate about the one thing. We're passionate about rural Ireland. And again, it's the most heartening thing I've had for 6 months. I've come away from every meeting just full of admiration for the people that are out there, the absolutely brilliant people that are out there in rural Ireland and are trying to help rural Ireland and trying to do something about rural Ireland. I thank you most sincerely for your attendance today. And can I just say, the closing date for submissions is the end of June. We're listening, we're learning as we go along. But the final job strategy, which will be solid, practical and workable, will be, that job strategy will be delivered by your submissions directly to that job strategy. So I thank you, every one of the organisers, and thank you most sincerely for your patience and for your attendance today. Thank you.